Thank you for being with us. It is 9 o'clock. Good morning. I'm Wes Jury. I'm the founder and CEO of the ATIP Foundation. To give you a very brief background, it's been interesting to me to walk around and say bioeconomy, and a number of participants here have said, "What's that?" And so I want to give you a very bit of background about where this day is coming from. Back in the early 2001 era, I was introduced to John Marburger, then running the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. I wanted to meet with him because I was working to build a Tier 1 research university in Arlington, Texas, between Dallas-Fort Worth, and walked out the sponsor of a program with the Federal Lab Consortium, meaning for the next decade. I hosted an event for 3 days. It featured 100 technology patents from federal labs, all available, to patent license agreements with and commercially produce and sell them back to the agency that invented the product. And people were surprised to learn that everything that comes out of a federal lab is available for commercialization. That led me into becoming a partnership intermediary for the Departments of Agriculture, Defense, Energy, and Transportation, learning far more about what those labs did. Ultimately, that got me involved with the Federal Biomass Research and Development Board, 7 federal agencies in the White House of Science and Technology Policy that came together under a congressional directive to individually and collectively do research to create the bioeconomy. And it was defined simply, look at everything that's biological in origin and determine what it can be converted into. Can we take cow manure and turn it into energy? Can we genetically engineer plants to pull contaminants out of the soil and then turn those into energy? And today, based on 26 years of research by those federal labs, there's an extensive amount of scientific knowledge and technical know-how in terms of how to take anything of a biological origin and turn that into a product, whether it's qualified, purified water, whether it's NPK fertilizer, whether it's actual electricity, natural gas, or so on. But we want to leave you with the idea that the bioeconomy can address food insecurity. It can promote food as medicine. It can do all of the things you just heard me mention, but at its heart and soul, it's an economic development strategy. I started a project in 2019 in California and was looking for training providers. Met with the dean of CTE at West Hills College, Lemoore, explained what I was going to be doing, and she said, "Sir, I don't have money for new programs." I said, "Well, let me ask you a question. Do you have a manufacturing program?" She said, "Sure." "Do you have a logistics program?" "Sure." I said, "Well, then you have what you need." She said, "I don't understand." I said, "I live in Arlington, Texas, near one of the biggest General Motors plants in North America. And every day it moves tens of thousands of parts and components into the assembly line, and they built SUVs from those parts and components, and they logistically moved them to market. And in the bioeconomy, they do the same thing. They move biomass from lots of different places into centralized facilities, go through conversion processes, often using automation and robotics like GM, and convert those to products. Now, logistically, they may move the product to market over the electric grid, the natural gas pipeline, other than highways and roadways, but it's really a form of manufacturing. And when you begin to think about some of the most underserved areas of our cities, here in Dallas, South Dallas has been neglected, underserved, and challenged for decades. There's incredible amounts of bio-waste in South Dallas. But imagine turning all of that into energy while making sure that we're cleaning up the environment in South Dallas. It just happens when you take biomass sitting outside going to waste, and instead of it sitting there releasing greenhouse gases, it's becoming electricity sold to the electric grid in Texas, creating jobs for people living there who desperately need them. And at the same time, it creates sales tax revenue for the city and county, and it creates growth in the economic realities of those areas of our cities. So we hope you'll take a more comprehensive thought approach to the bioeconomy as you hear the comments and presentations you're going to hear today. For those of you interested, we'll have reserved tables at lunch, so those of you attending this day could sit together if you choose to. How many of you would like to sit together at lunch? I just need a count to let them know how many reserved tables we need. Okay. So I've got 2 colleagues who are going to speak and follow up to me. Brad Boa with Restorative Farms has been one of our partners in helping put together. And John Haywood with the People and Land Foundation has been one of my partners in helping put this together. And so they're each going to make some opening comments, and then we'll rapidly move forward with our opening session. I would tell all of you, if you look down here, you'll see the little timer in red. It will tell each of you how many minutes you have, and as soon as you start talking, the time will drop so that you'll see when you have 3 minutes left, 1 minute left, and you're out of time. We ask you to keep on schedule. And your slides will be there, and you could forward them with this clicker. So Brad or John, whoever wants to come next, please come to the podium.
Well, I do love the smell of napalm in the morning, so it's a lot of chaos, people checking in when weather, but more people are coming. But I want to thank you all for being here and want to give a big shout out to our sponsors, some who are here and some who aren't. And for those of you who want to talk to some of the panelists, we probably won't have time for Q&A, but they will be available. And everyone on every panel is really an expert in their domain. And we hope that each session is a little provocative and make people think and make you think and bring questions to mind. So I want to thank you for being here. And I guess I'll pass it to John. Do you have words you like to? John has words of wisdom, so.
First of all, I'd like to thank Wes and Brad, our Texas locals, and Christy for putting this event together and inviting People, Food, and Land to join. As Wes mentioned, I'm John Haywood, Executive Director for People, Food, and Land Foundation. I'll just mention briefly that we were formed in the Central Valley in 1975, so we're in our 51st year. And I'll let the name speak for itself for now. But I got up this morning at 5 o'clock and decided to write something that I was just going to share as we kick off the day. And what prompted this is several conversations I've had over the last couple of days talking to people in this building. I mentioned bioeconomy, come to our bioeconomy day, and the faces gloss over and say, what is the bioeconomy? So I'm going to repeat something that I imagine almost everyone in this room knows, a little bit of a frame around that, and then maybe push the envelope a little bit to a slight reframe as well. Because we're going to spend the day, of course, talking about the bioeconomy, and that's a word we use often, but not always precisely. So just to ground us, the bioeconomy is, at its simplest, an economy built from biological resources, plants, trees, soils, microbes, the living systems that produce, store, and move carbon and nutrient. And increasingly these days, we're talking about the circular bioeconomy, one where materials don't become waste, but are cycled back into use. And that really matters because for a long time, we've operated, as we know, in a linear model: use, extract, dispose. And circularity is an important step forward. But I wanted to suggest something at the outset today, that circularity, while necessary, may not be sufficient, because a system can cycle materials and still quietly lose capacity. It can move carbon efficiently while soils degrade, while water systems weaken, and while biological function declines. So the question I'd offer as a lens for today is this: are we designing systems that simply reduce harm, or systems that actually build capacity over time? Because there's a difference. Circular systems do reduce harm. Symbiotic systems build capacity. And over time, capacity, not efficiency, is what determines whether systems endure. You can see this even outside of economics. So if you ask someone, how's your marriage? And they say, it's sustainable. Well, you don't feel reassured, do you? You hear maintenance, not vitality. And I think that's where we are collectively. We've gotten very good at asking, can this system be sustained? But we're just beginning to ask, can it become more alive over time? Now, this matters in a very practical way for everything we'll discuss today, because the bioeconomy includes a wide range of systems, as we know: agriculture, forestry, biofuels, biomaterials, waste recovery. Some of these systems are extractive, some are circular, and some, if designed well, become generative. And one place this becomes especially clear is when we look at resource recovery: forest residues, orchard removals, manure, urban organics, what we often call waste. But waste is not just a resource, it's also a signal. a signal that carbon and nutrient are in the wrong place. So the opportunity in the bioeconomy is not just to use biological materials, it is to reposition them, to take carbon that is out of balance and put it back where it builds capacity in soils, in ecosystems, in systems that can hold water, support biology, and sustain productivity over time, which leads to a very different way of thinking about the work ahead. Not just how do we produce more, and not just how do we waste less, but how do we build systems where each cycle leaves the system stronger than before? Because that's the shift. That's the reframe. From throughput to coherence, from efficiency to greater capacity, and from circularity to symbiosis. So as we move through our conversations today, across policy, business models, technology, and land management, I'd offer that as a shared lens, not just whether a system works, but whether it builds the conditions for more life, more function, and more resilience over time. Because in the end, sustainability maintains, capacity grows, and in living systems, what grows endures. Thank you.